our money and ran away with her boyfriend, and now that he stole everything and left, she's trying to come back home. Part 2. Basically, I rushed home as soon as I was released from work, and obviously, when I got there, she tried to play the victim and say that she regrets it and that she would change now. But I had heard that talk several times before, and contrary to what she thought, this time it wouldn't work. I told her she should leave the house right at that moment, or I would call the police. She ignored what I said again and kept asking for forgiveness and begging me to let her stay. My wife tried to convince me that it was wrong, and despite everything, she was still our sweet child, but I wouldn't be convinced. She made several choices, but stealing from us and then coming back when everything went wrong was something I simply couldn't forgive. After insisting a lot and threatening to call the police again, she finally left, but not without shouting and calling us cruel and horrible relatives. My wife spent the rest of the week trying to convince me that it was wrong, and we should just tolerate her again and accept her back home, but I didn't give in. Finally, this weekend, I traveled again for work and thought that all the situation had been resolved, as my wife hadn't said anything to me. I worked for about 4 days and was going to leave the next day. However, my boss ended up releasing me earlier to travel back home, and I decided to surprise my wife. I bought chocolates, cakes, and cheeses for us to have a special dinner, and I went home. But upon opening the door, I was faced with something I definitely didn't want. There was my daughter again. Her suitcase was open in the living room, and apparently, she had already moved back in. Before I said anything, my wife said she made this decision on her own because she thought it was her right, and as a mother, she couldn't see her daughter out there and not take care of her. I said okay, but if she had the right to make such a decision on her own, I should have one too. So I left home and did what I said I would do. I called the police and reported my daughter for what she had done. My wife freaked out, tried to tell the police that nothing had happened, but they were the same ones who had helped us before, and they already knew everything. My daughter panicked, begged me not to do it, but I warned her that if she came back home, there would be consequences. My wife is mad at me, but I don't care. She also has a share of the blame in what happened. Honestly, I don't know if I'm right or not, but at this point, I can't care anymore.